Hey, what's up, guys? Today I had an interview with British HODL. He is a Bitcoin educator, Bitcoin maximalist, and cigar enthusiast. In this interview, we discussed Bitcoin spot ETFs, perpetual Bitcoin cycle, the future for Bitcoin, economy, CBDCs, and other topics. Enjoy this conversation. British HODL, how are you doing today?
My friend, I'm good. Thanks for having me back.
Yes, of course, absolutely. You have been creating a lot of great content lately, and I
Thank
think we can start this conversation maybe with Bitcoin spot ETFs. Bitcoin spot ETFs have been approved like January 10, January 9, I believe. That would be like more than a month ago. So what do you think has happened since then?
I think that they have been the single most successful financial market ETF product that's been launched. I think they've managed to secure $6 billion worth of capital rotation. I think that investors that didn't have access to Bitcoin or the confidence to get access to Bitcoin and now have access and confidence in Bitcoin. I think BlackRock and Fidelity and every other asset manager out there is now suddenly a Bitcoin proponent. I think it's stupid to be anti-Bitcoin at this point, as Andrew Ross Sorkin is finding out today from his CNBC bit, I think yesterday. So yeah, like, look, Bitcoin has basically gone from a risk asset to a must-own asset. I believe it has started what I want to call a perpetual Bitcoin cycle. And this is quite exciting. Over the first 26 trading sessions, we've had, uh, you know, 160 million dollars a day worth of net inflows. That is also accounting for, excluding GBTC's outflows. So it's been a fantastic it's been one of the most successful product launches in American financial history, and it's Bitcoin.
Right, so far I think on that inflow together would be more than like 5 billion, while
Something like that.
GBTC,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
GBTC sold roughly like $7 billion worth of BTC so far. Do you think BTC will continue to sell BTC, Bitcoin, and will they survive this selling pressure?
I think something is going to change once they hit a certain number of Bitcoin. I don't know what that number is, but I think something is going to change. I think once this Genesis selling that's been instructed by the court finishes, I think you're probably going to see discussion around maybe changing up the fee structure of GBTC, and the bleeding is probably enough. If GBTC reduced their fees down to, let's say, 0.5%, the bleeding would stop.
Yeah, like 1.5% is insane. Like all
Yeah.
other Bitcoin spot ETFs, they charge like 20, 30 basis points, but they charge like 1.5%. That's like sometimes five times higher than their competitors. So no wonder
Yeah,
guys.
it's an insult. That's what it is. It's an
Exactly, yeah.
insult to your clients. However, when I think about it, it's like if they know that all of this selling is coming down the pipeline, why not keep the fees high until the selling is done and then lower the fees?
Yeah, that makes sense too. But right now, what they lost roughly like 30% of their Bitcoin AUM. So maybe if they would preserve those 30%, they would potentially make more money at the lower fees. I don't know.
Yeah,
But
but that's the point, though, right? I don't think they would have preserved it. I think there's people that are just going to want, like, for example, I'm moving my GBTC position, and I'm moving it because I want diversification in custody risk, right? So I'm moving it to Fidelity because BlackRock and most 90% of the ETFs are using Coinbase. So I'm going to move a portion of my ETF position to Fidelity to get the diversification on the custody. So it's those games are always going to be played, and I if they reduce it, soonish, I would say within the next quarter, I think it will turn out to have been a smart play.
got it. What custodian Fidelity uses?
Fidelity. Fidelity
Or,
uses Fidelity.
or they have their own custodian? Or
Yes. Yeah, they've been doing it for years.
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, Coinbase has probably like 90% of Bitcoin spot ETF market for
Right.
custodian. But anyway, so let's move on to Bitcoin market cycles. Recently, you made a video about it. You called it perpetual cycle, I believe. So maybe you can explain what it is.
Yeah, I believe a perpetual cycle for Bitcoin has begun on January 11th, which is the first day of the ETFs. What I mean by a perpetual cycle is a cycle that doesn't get affected by retail emotions, right? These boom and bust that are crazy for Bitcoin that we've all experienced are not really institutional. They're not really institutional funds, right? This is a, uh, an emotional reaction for um, for retail markets, right? And now you've got an ETF product that's out here that's going to secure $200 million a day worth of buying, no matter what the price is, because they just need to get an allocation. If BlackRock wants to make a 1% allocation of their assets under management today, they need to buy $100 billion worth of Bitcoin, which is one institution is buying 5 times more than what drove the 2020 bull market. Think about that. It's absolutely insanity. So, and in order for them to do that, they could buy $200 million a day, right, for 500 trading sessions, which is 2 years, right? So I think we're entering a new, and that's just BlackRock. I'm not talking about Fidelity. I'm not talking about any of the others. So I think we've entered a perpetual cycle. So what that means is that yes, I think the stock to flow is going to be very relevant, but that's going to be like a shot of adrenaline every 4 years. And in between that, I think we sort of just, we're going to have these ups and downs, but I think they're going to be muted to the upside and muted to the downside because of that steady buying that's coming in.
So you think Bitcoin's going to be less volatile?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. As generally as market caps grow, the asset becomes less volatile, and I think that's exactly what's going to happen to Bitcoin, and I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I think volatility probably going to stabilize more or less when Bitcoin is like 300, 400, maybe $500,000, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen now.
And, well, I'm not saying it's gonna. What I'm saying is that Bitcoin has entered a perpetual cycle, right? So it doesn't mean that all of this is going to build in right now. But what I'm saying is that this is what's programmed at this point.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I believe in 2017, I forgot what the guy name is. He was advocating like super cycle, but of course back then we did not have Bitcoin spot ETFs, and now Bitcoin spot ETFs could be, like as you said, probably the biggest catalyst so far. So yeah, I do agree with you. I think we might see like something different this cycle compared to the previous ones.
Yeah, remember, right? Like, there's only really two data points for the cycle structures that everyone keeps talking about. Like, it's two, and in those two, you have not had a buying force like the ETFs. So I think super cycle. Yes, I think all of these things make sense, but I think the idea of a perpetual Bitcoin cycle makes more sense than anything else. And I think the idea of an omega candle and all this other stuff, like. An omega, I think I was talking to Samson Mao on a Twitter Spaces, and even he said, like, I don't think there's going to be one day where you're going to just see $100,000 candle anymore. And I put a tweet out and I said, the omega candle has changed from a oh my god, it's never going to stop candle, right? And I think that's really what the idea of a perpetual cycle is.
Right. Another thing that Samson Mao stated recently, that he counts Bitcoin now in a million. Right now, Bitcoin like 0.05 of a million, like 5% of a million, which is I think that's a good idea. Yep, that's a good idea. I love it. Yep. Okay, so let's move on British HODL. So, do you think Bitcoin will get like 1% adoption regarding from Bitcoin spot ETFs?
Yes, my thesis has always been that 1% of all assets under management will move into Bitcoin over a period of 8 to 10 years. Right. So, and I thought about that in 2020, and now the vehicle to make that happen has now emerged. And remember, there's also ancillary benefits to an ETF. It's not just the ETF. They might not buy it through the ETF, but if you're a multi-billion-dollar family office, you're going to sit there and go, okay, BlackRock's behind this. Let me call BlackRock. Let me call Coinbase. Let me call whoever and get an allocation for us, even though I'm not directly doing it through the ETF. But just the presence of an ETF makes the asset more viable.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you have any math? How much do you think is going to be if 1% of ETF AUM going to BTC? Yeah.
So look, Bank of America, they have talked about the bull market multiplier, right? Bank of America's research shows that every dollar going into Bitcoin was causing a $118 increase in market cap in the previous cycle. Based on the first 26 trading sessions of the ETFs, you're looking at around a 55 multiple, and we're in the middle of a bear market right now. So, when I look at it, there's $130 trillion managed by the top 500 asset managers in the world. 1% of that is 1.3 trillion. And if you get that bull market multiple, which by the way, I think gets higher, but if you get that bull market multiple, you're looking at a $7 million Bitcoin price.
Yeah, that sounds insane, but yeah, I hope it's going to happen. I think Michael
But just
Saylor.
let me people go crazy when you start talking about trillions, right? So just think about this: BlackRock's $10 trillion. In order for BlackRock to put 1% into Bitcoin, which by the way, by the end of this year, it's going to be the number one performing asset in their prospectus. It's the number one performing ETF they've got. It's the highest fee growth product that they have. So why wouldn't they put 1% in their of their assets into Bitcoin? And so when you think about it like that, 1% of just BlackRock's assets under management is $100 billion, which is four
Yep.
times more than the entire bull market of 2020 and 2021.
If you multiply by was it 118, then you get like humongous amount of number, like a
Yeah,
humongous price.
yeah,
Yep. Yep. All right. So let's move on. Yeah, we spoke about Bitcoin. Let's move on to like economy. Are you like keeping up with the economy? What you think is happening with inflation
yeah.
and so on and so forth?
Yeah, I think inflation is going to continue trending downwards. I think if you look at true inflation's data, they're showing a sub 2% inflation rate year on year. And I think inflation continues to trend downwards. Now, we can argue whether we're talking about, the inflation in the way that it's measured right now or in the way that it should be measured, and that's a whole different debate, right? But based on the data that's presented out there and the data that decision makers use, inflation is trending downwards. And that's a good thing because interest rates have to come down because I think 20% of the commercial real estate market needs to be refied this year. And it's like $8 trillion of government debt needs to be refied this year. So interest rates are coming down, inflation is coming down. We're about to enter a new period where there will need to do credit expansion to keep the economy alive, keep the inflationary system alive. But yeah, there's a lot of deflationary forces right now, and the worst enemy of an inflationary system is deflation.
Yep, I agree with you. Yeah, inflation. I think for January. Oh, yeah, for January, I think it was pretty low, below 3% in United States, at least in nominal terms. Real terms, probably double than that, maybe 6, 7, something like that. So a lot of people still feeling this like high prices in groceries, gasoline. Yes, came down by quite a bit, but it's still relatively higher compared to, let's say, even prior to 2020, prior to Corona crash. But anyway, what do you think is the solution for like high prices and like this kind of like stagnation for the people?
Yeah, listen, look, that's a really tough question. At the end of the day, we've got to allow deflation to work if we want a solution for the middle class. And unfortunately, that's just not how the system works. It's not how the system has ever worked. So, I can't think of a solution. For as long as we are in this system, what will happen is that the middle class will continue to get drained. Wealth will cause disparity, increase disparity between the upper class and the lower class, and you got to decide if you're in the middle class which way you're going to go, which way your family's going to go, and which way your last name is going to go. That's it. I don't want to sit here and be like everybody else that says, oh, if we just did this then that. No, this is it. You are fucked. So you either got to figure out, are you going to move towards the upper class and be rich, or are you going to keep moving to the bottom class and be poor? One or the other, because the middle class is going away.
Yeah, or another way, just buy Bitcoin.
Yeah, you need to, what are you going to do, right?
Exactly, yeah.
You got inflation, real inflation sitting at probably like what, 6 to 10%, something like
Yep.
that. You've got wages that aren't growing, right? Like what do? You got the one asset that everyone in that class owns, which is real estate, that needs to be brought down in price or kept the same over the next decade. What do you do? Like Bitcoin is the only solution. If you either choose Bitcoin or you choose hyper speculative options, and you choose hyper speculative options, and you got a 97% chance of losing your money. So Bitcoin, just based on deduction, Bitcoin is the best answer you have.
and and also the easiest to buy. I remember back in 2018, 2019, I wanted to have like more or less like diversified portfolio, maybe like one third of gold, one third of Bitcoin, and one third of maybe stocks mixed with something else. But the gold was very difficult to buy. I'm like, I bought maybe like 1 ounce of gold. You have to pay markup fees like 5, maybe 10%, and then you have to pay insurance and the other stuff. I'm like, screw this. Let me just buy Bitcoin. Like with a few clicks of the mouse, I just bought Bitcoin. I'm like, screw that gold. So
Right.
yeah, I
Right.
think.
And imagine most people are not in your lucky position to buy an ounce of gold, right? They're going to buy a gram of gold. They're going to buy 2 grams of
Yep.
gold. And when you work that out, the premiums are like 40%, which means that the value of the gold has to go up 40% before that person starts breaking even. So Bitcoin's the one opportunity that wealthy people and poor people can use at the exact same time to get the same result. There's no other asset.
Yeah, Bitcoin is by far like the most superior asset you can transfer anywhere in the world. Like try to go through the airport with an ounce of gold. It's not going to happen, but they do not know you have Bitcoin. So that's one of the beauties of Bitcoin. And some people still do not understand that there are many like Bitcoin critics. They say Bitcoin is useless. It has no value. What do you think? What do you have to say to them, if
I
anything?
just think they're idiots. Like at this point, I don't even think about them. Like if you think that Bitcoin has no value, you haven't done your homework, and I don't think you deserve the conversation that we're going to have. You don't understand how Bitcoin is a store of value. Basically, if you say that Bitcoin has no value, what you're basically saying is that the entire Earth's population does not have one single problem called store of value. So therefore, you don't understand the basic fundamentals of the subjugation of humanity for 230 years. Why the fuck do I want to waste my time talking to you?
Exactly. So speaking of value, do you think Bitcoin has like intrinsic value or is like more like widely spread? Like we know Bitcoin has value, but we do not know what is it.
Intrinsic value is always an interesting conversation to have. Intrinsic value, I don't think there is such a thing as intrinsic value, right? I think that Bitcoin just has value, right? There is value in the store of value aspect of Bitcoin. There is value in being able to do cross-border transactions. There is like a friend of mine right now who's Canadian is thinking about setting up a business in the Dominican Republic. The easiest, fastest way for him to move money from Canada to the Dominican Republic is through using Bitcoin, right? So there's a lot of value around it. Then you look at the Bitcoin network that can secure data, right, in the most secure network humanity has ever seen. So there is a lot of value to Bitcoin and the Bitcoin network. But for me, the value proposition that I focus on is the store of value aspect, which is the aspect that affects every single person on Earth.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with you. Bitcoin definitely has value, but I'm not too sure how, like what is the intrinsic value of Bitcoin, but it's definitely valuable. It's valuable to
Well,
transfer.
if you had to look at the intrinsic value of Bitcoin, you would look at the cost of the mining
Miners.
network and say,
Yeah.
yeah, and say that was the intrinsic value. But that's stupid, right? Like if nothing trades at its intrinsic value, right? Houses are not at their intrinsic value. It costs you 150,000 to build a $300,000 house. Who gives a
House. Yeah.
shit about its intrinsic value because it's going to sell for 300,000? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but Bitcoin is like if you transfer, for example, I'm from Ukraine. For example, if you transfer Bitcoin from here to Ukraine, it's very valuable. But if you transfer, let's say, money through the Western Union, you're gonna get charged like 5% or whatever. But Bitcoin will like maybe $10 or something like that. So that's definitely
That's
valuable.
another value proposition, right? That's another
Yeah.
value proposition. It's the foreign exchange transfers. So there's a lot of value for Bitcoin in different places, but I think the intrinsic value debate is pointless
Yeah,
in
like
every
some
asset, by the way.
yeah, some investors say value is subjective. For example, if you're thirsty, I can drink water right now. But if you like in a desert island, there's no water there, so you're probably
Yeah,
gonna pay $100,000 for a cup of water.
yeah.
But anyway, British HODL, let's move on to. You also made another video about Bitcoin mistakes. Maybe you can name what are they?
When you say Bitcoin mistake, what you mean my Bitcoin mistake?
Hmm.
Which video are you referring to?
I think that was maybe 3 weeks ago or 1 month
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah, so that was my Bitcoin mistake where I bought 20 Bitcoin sitting there smoking cigars with a friend of mine in 2016, 2017. It ran up. We doubled our money in the space of 2 weeks. And we sold the Bitcoin because we wanted to pay for 6 months worth of cigars or whatever it worked out to at the time. Um, yeah, like there's always going to be, if you're an investor, you're always going to have these stories, right? And the difference is that one thing I'm trying to warn people on is that the new buyer that's coming into Bitcoin at this point has already made these mistakes. So if you're sitting there going, I own Bitcoin and now I'm going to start trading it because I see this opportunity in Solana and NFTs and all this other bullshit, It's like the person that you are selling your Bitcoin to has already lived those mistakes in other assets. So they know never to sell that asset, right? They're trained, they're precision trained to never to sell an asset with absolute scarcity. So this is why I keep saying, like, boomers are going to end up with all of the Bitcoin that millennials think that they own right now, because millennials are going to think they're too smart, and boomers are going to sit there and go, "Oh, remember when I bought gold and sold gold before the ETF came out because I thought the ETF wasn't going to do anything because I believe some doom and gloom boomer at that time." Like, I remember that, and so therefore I'm not going to ever sell Bitcoin now, right? So they've already learned those mistakes, whereas the millennials haven't. The Gen
Yeah,
Z hasn't.
yeah. I remember I learned my the first like investing mistakes when I was a freshman in college. I was like investing in stocks. I had maybe like $5,000. I bought like Apple stock. It when it was down by 5%. I'm like I got scared. I sold, and then I tried to get my money back. I started buying some like gold mining stocks, and then eventually I just lost my entire like $5,000. So that was the only money I had back then, but that was a very like valuable lesson. So it's better
Right,
to yeah, it's better to like learn your through your mistakes while still you're young, because like if you're like 50 years old, if you get like wiped
right.
out, then it's going to be a problem.
Yep, I agree.
Yep. Okay, so let's move on. Right now Bitcoin was like $50,000. Bitcoin was more or less I would say like kind of volatile after like Bitcoin having we had like a like pullback to like 38. Now we are about like 450K. We also touched like $53,000. I think was it yesterday? I think so. And yeah, we can say that Bitcoin is still volatile, and as you said, that volatility probably is going to subside eventually. Like, what price level do you think is going to happen?
Wow, that's a very tough question. I don't know. I think the volatility of Bitcoin will reduce, but I can't tell you when it's going to match the S&P 500. It's certainly going to be significantly higher than here, and that's because of the finality, the scarcity of the asset, right? You've got absolute finality of scarcity with Bitcoin, which means that I would say that the volatility slows down after we reach a 1% allocation of assets under management.
It's probably going to take a few years at least. Yeah, I
Couple
would
of
agree
years,
with
yeah.
you. Yeah, right. Yeah, we do not know the price, but we can see like through adoptions or where Bitcoin is through the volatility, and we also can see like close correlation between like M2 money supply and Bitcoin. And right now, U.S. still does not like print money. They do like quantitative tightening. At least that's what they say. But while other countries around the world they do print money, do you think Bitcoin appreciates based on like money printing, or there is something else behind it?
Bitcoin is not really appreciating, right? It's the currency that's depreciating.
Yep.
So so really what's going on is when new liquidity is injected into an economy, it starts searching for a home because it knows that the second it is born, its value is going down. Certain. There's absolute certainty on that. So therefore, it has to find a new home. And now what we're realizing, with the help of Larry Fink and Fidelity and Abigail Johnson and all these people, is that Bitcoin is the best protector of value for new capital that's just born. So, do I think that Bitcoin is going up? Not really. I just think these dollars are going down. Now, the difference is with Bitcoin is that right now we've got a period where there is a rush to adopt. This is the adoption curve idea, where there's going to be a short period of time where a lot of people suddenly adopt. And if anyone's wondering, oh, this sounds like a new hocus pocus bullshit, all you got to do is go look at the chart of Tesla from 2019 to 2020, which is when the Russell 2000 managers decided we need an allocation to Tesla. Same thing's happening to Bitcoin at this point.
Yeah, I agree. I think Bitcoin, yeah, it's skyrocketed for the past 10 years, but look for what happened to US dollar in the past 100 years. Bitcoin just trying to like catch up to what happened
Right.
to inflated currency. But do you think if they would, let's say, if they would like stop printing, and let's say they would adopt a gold standard or some type of a commodity-backed currency, then do you think Bitcoin would still be able to appreciate from there?
Yes, but for a different reason, right? So you're at that point, the reason why you're appreciating is because people have chosen to take adoption of Bitcoin, and so you're going through that adoption S curve when it comes to the value of Bitcoin appreciating in dollars. If the smartest thing that the United States can do to stop Bitcoin adoption is to move currency to a gold-backed currency, right? That's to a secure currency, 100% reserve currency. But even then, they can't do it because there's already a $900 trillion melting ice cube out there that has to find a home somewhere, and that's the issue. So that is what will continue the adoption.
Yep, I agree with you. Even if you look at the Bitcoin versus gold, we can clearly see that Bitcoin appreciate against gold in the past like 10 years by a lot. Gold clearly has been flat for a decade, while Bitcoin generated like what is it, thousands or if 100,000%, something like that. And do you think Bitcoin will continue to appreciate against gold, or gold will eventually catch up? Because as they say, like gold is also like a hedge against inflation.
Gold, Bitcoin will appreciate faster than every other asset because it is the scarcest asset. Really, what people are buying when they buy gold, real estate, equities, whatever, is scarcity, right? Scarcity is the ultimate asset. And so with Bitcoin, you have ultimate scarcity. So unless something can come along that's more scarce than Bitcoin and widely adopted, Bitcoin is going to perform the best out of all of those assets.
Yeah, I agree. What do you think? Yeah, I kind of know your opinion on Bitcoin versus like altcoins. Yeah, there could be maybe like one altcoin out of like 1,000 that outperform Bitcoin. But what do you think Bitcoin versus altcoin looks like into the future?
Listen, to me, anyone who is focused on altcoins doesn't understand themselves. You are still chasing fiat gains, right? So when people tell me, okay, I need to generate income, I need to generate returns in order to put money into Bitcoin in order to start making it. Okay, well, go create some value. The problem right now is that you got all these morons that are sitting there trying to speculate and scalp off of the fiat markets, their little returns on their shit coins, not realizing that 97% of the time they all lose money, right?
Yeah.
97% of the time, they all lose money. You're doing this in an unregulated market where the big players have every incentive to screw you, rather than just focusing on Bitcoin and its value protecting mechanism that's out there and figuring out how to create value in the world. But you know why they don't want to do that? Because it's hard work. It's hard work to create value in the world. It's hard work to convince somebody to buy the value that you have in the world. And it's hard work to scale that. And it's hard work to build a business or a job around that. That's why they're focused on shitcoins, because they want an easy way out and they want to sit behind their computer and they think they want to trade in and out of something and they want to try and grab that value, right? It's not value. It's not value. You're not creating anything. You're speculating, right? So to me, like good. If anyone succeeds, which I've got friends that succeed with shitcoin trading, right? It's like, okay, that's cool. But what do you, number one, what are you going to do with your profits, right? If you put them into Bitcoin, at least you did something smart. But what was the purpose of you doing that? Like, okay, could you not do that and create some value in the world? You have to literally sit there 24/7, trading shit coins to do that. So when people ask me, what do I think about shit coins? The truth is, I don't think about shit coins. I
Yeah,
have no
that's
reason to. I'm focused on the single one problem that every single person in humanity is affected by, and that is the subjugation of their financial well being. Every single person in the world is affected by that issue. That's what I choose to focus on. I do not give a damn about any shitcoin trying to tell me that it's going to pump because we've now thought of a new solution to some bullshit that nobody cares about anyway.
Yeah, I agree with you. Humans' nature is very addicted to gamble, and that's why we have altcoins, why we have casinos, and a lot other like gambling stuff. But
Hey, ultimately, look, let me ask you a question. Let me ask you an honest question. Okay? Let's ask, we're here, it's just me and you. Let's ask an honest
okay,
question. Do you really want everyone in the world to win?
uh, yeah, sure. I mean, I don't
I
think
don't.
everybody.
I don't. Who's going to clean your car?
No, what I want to say that everybody by definition it cannot win. Of course, there will be like winners or losers, or there will be like up
So,
and
but now
comes or
my
falling
question
comes.
was, do you want everyone to win?
I mean, I wouldn't mind, but I don't think it's possible.
But I'm not asking whether I'm saying, do you want it? Do you want that to happen?
Uh, I mean, I don't know.
Right? I don't. Right? I want my team to win. Okay? I want the people that I care about to win. I want the people that take the action to win. I want the people who sacrifice their time, their energy, their desires, the people that put aside whatever else they could have been doing to focus on whatever they want to focus on. In this case, we're talking about Bitcoin, to win. And I want people out there who need to earn money at some point, because I'm going to need my car cleaned. I'm going to need my house cleaned. I'm going to need to fly on a plane. I'm going to need to have a driver. I'm going to need somebody to make my food. I'm going to need all of this. So here's the thing. I don't care what anyone says. You've heard me say it. Like, I don't come from the happy hippie vision of life. Like, we're all going to hug trees and suddenly Bitcoin's going to fall out the sky for all of us. It ain't going to work like that. Right now, there's 500,000 accounts with more than one Bitcoin, correct? Am I getting that right? If I remember correctly, something like that, right?
Yeah, I think
Right?
500,000.
Right. Something, I don't know. Let's just use that as an example. There's
Okay, yeah.
500,000 addresses with one Bitcoin on there. I have 3, which means if we extrapolate that out, right, you're probably looking at 150,000 people in the world with more than one Bitcoin. That
Yeah.
distribution is quite intriguing. It's quite interesting to think about what the distribution of Bitcoin is. And the reality is this: I don't care. I care about the people that are on the same mission that I'm on. That's why I started my YouTube. That's why I started everything else. Everyone else can think about it and mentally masturbate about it and have a great time thinking about what's going on. I want my team to own Bitcoin. I want them to control the direction that the world is going in. If anyone wants to join on that mission, they can. Otherwise, we're all going to need people to help us out with stuff once we get there.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on. Yeah, as you said, you are a Bitcoin maximalist, but we also recently saw some ordinals on Bitcoin NFTs. They transfer from like Ethereum from other shitcoins to Bitcoin. What do you think about that?
I'm a capitalist, right? So as a capitalist, I'm in support of uh, people having the right to make and lose money, right? That's basic capitalism. And so the problem that I have is when people don't do it on a system that is secure. And that's what it is with all these other things. So if you want to do NFTs on Bitcoin, go ahead, right? I have no issues with that. Why? Because the underlying system is fixed and it's fair. Whereas I know people that have been involved in all these other NFT projects, shitcoin projects, and 5 people have decided to rug the whole project, right? Like, that's not a fair system. At least if you're gonna do it on Bitcoin, build it on Bitcoin, have a fair system, and then have fun doing what you want to do. Because I own mining stock, so my mining stock values are gonna go up. You keep doing ordinals.
Yeah, 100% agree that ordinals better on Bitcoin than elsewhere, but I would say I am more as a monetary Bitcoin maximalist. I would more focus just monetary value rather than a bunch of stuff being built on Bitcoin that do not really create any value, because like I'm not a fan of NFTs, no ordinals, because let's say there is a ordinal on a Bitcoin blockchain, but that ordinal is probably attached to some physical item in the world. Let's say Mona Lisa is backed by Bitcoin ordinals. So let's say somebody burned Mona Lisa and nobody's
Yeah,
and
I agree.
you know
I
what I'm
think
saying,
that's
right?
yes, the stupidest thing on earth is to
Yeah.
think that a blockchain NFT is going to relate to anything in the real world, right? Like, that interaction is not going to take place. They can't solve the Oracle problem. They can't solve all these things. So, like, that's not going to happen, right? But if you really think that there's a market for trading satoshis that have images attached to them that you think are worth 4 Bitcoin, go for it. Do it on Bitcoin.
Yep, I agreed. All right, British HODL. So yeah, we are like 2 months away until less than 2 months away until the next Bitcoin having. Do you think Bitcoin having is priced in, and how significant it's going to be?
the Bitcoin halving is never priced in, especially now with the consistent flows that are coming in, right? You got $200 million a day worth of flows coming in, and they're going to be they're chasing 900 Bitcoin today plus whatever morons are selling, and in 60 days they're going to start chasing 450 Bitcoin a day plus whatever morons are selling. So. Yeah, no, it's not priced in. There's no way to price that in because you got consistent flows now. It's not, no one's really trying to front run the market. They're trying to get in every single day, no matter what. Um, and the supply is about to go down by half. Simple as that. It's not priced in.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think if it would be priced in already, it means that people would not think that BTC would went up higher after Bitcoin halving, which is does not make a lot of sense. And I remember, I think back in early 2020, Plan B made a poll. He asked if Bitcoin halving was priced in, and I think like maybe 85% of people said that it was, but we can clearly see that it wasn't because Bitcoin skyrocketed from after Bitcoin halving was approved. So. I think that makes a lot of
Yeah,
sense that it's not.
don't get your data from Twitter. I guess that's what the information is there. Yeah, like whenever retail says that it's going left, you should probably vote right.
It'd be like contrarian.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually like the idea of being like contrarian investor. So what do you think is going to happen later this year or maybe like mid to late 2025 to Bitcoin?
So if I had to really guess, right, and it's again me guessing, um, I would say that we're going to approach the all-time high before the halving, and we may even surpass it for a day. And then I think we're going to see some form of pullback um, as people rotate and sell. Because remember, there's a lot of people from 2020, 2021 that bought at these, or 21 really, they bought at these high levels, and they've been really, nerve wracked by sitting on the price going all the way back down to 15.5. And so between 41 and 69, let's say, there's going to be a lot of people, a lot of retail that wants to just get out because they've had enough. So that needs to be chewed up. And then I think we approach 100,000 before the end of the year. And I think there will probably be a dip at 100,000 too.
Yeah, and I think Plan B and his model stock to flow predicts as a average price to be after Bitcoin having to be at around $500,000, which means that Bitcoin probably have to go about like 700K, drop to like maybe 400K, then like balance it out through the volatility. Do you think it's possible?
Do I think it's possible? Yeah, absolutely. But I think that, again, what I said at the beginning, my idea of the perpetual Bitcoin cycle fits well within that model, right? Because we could go up and then we could come back down. And then we could go up and then come back down. And we could do this motion until we match the uh, stock to flow model. And again, it's just a model, right? It's just a model. We
Right.
don't know what's going to happen. I don't think stock to flow factors in $200 million every single day worth of purchasing from people who will never sell and trade in and out of the asset.
Yeah, stocks of flow did not know that Bitcoin spot that would be approved back in 2019 or whatever. But going back to Plan B, he created back in 2019, 2020 a number of Bitcoin models. One would be stock to flow like 55K, his current model, then 100K, and then 300K like cross asset model. So it seems like two models of his were incorrect, and 55K was barely catching up. Do you think he was wrong about his like stuff like Bitcoin prediction, or
I like Plan B a lot. I like Plan B a lot. I think the work that he's done has been very, very impressive. It's certainly the idea of stock to flow, not necessarily the model. The idea helped me understand Bitcoin as a previous gold guy. So yeah, I think he's done a lot of good work, and I think that first model is the one that we should look at. And anyone hating on Plan B, just remember: firstly, you probably haven't put out a model of your own, right? And secondly, Fidelity has not put your model in their brochure. They have put the stock to flow model in their brochure. You don't think Fidelity got their nerds to sit there, army of 200 nerds, to sit there and comb through the data before they put it out in their prospectus to send to their highest net worth clients? I think there's a lot of validity to the idea of stock to flow and how Bitcoin moves, but I just think that we get there slightly differently this time compared to the previous times.
yeah, I agree with you. I like the idea of stock to flow when supply drops in half. Obviously, there has to be some demand shock happening into uh, the Bitcoin market, but like he's clearly stated that like average price, like literally 10 axis, like every cycle. But I'm not a big fan of that because like we do not know where Bitcoin's going to top or where Bitcoin's going to bottom, but I think we know that Bitcoin's going to go up after the supply shock.
Yeah, I mean, even he himself said, he thinks that it would probably be relevant for 2 or 3 cycles, right? So, it's a model. It's a model. At one point, it's going to break, and it's going to be proven useless. But I don't think that's going to be, the last cycle. It certainly wasn't, and I don't think it's going to be this cycle. I think the last cycle, the reason why people started attacking it was because it was too bullish, right? And they got their little hearts broken. That was it. Like it's as simple as that. But then again, if you think about the 55K, his first model that he put out, it was perfectly fine. I think it was a perfectly fine model. Again, I understand it was a model, right? Like it wasn't the Bible. It was a model, and he said it himself. So I think he's done great work, and I think he's added a lot of value. And certainly if Fidelity managed to put that model into their prospectuses, I'm pretty sure there's some value there.
Yeah, all models are good until they're broken. And
Right.
yep, and moving on, British HODL. So let's say we are in 2030. Do you think Bitcoin can actually work as a global reserve? I would say money, not currency.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean
Now
by
let's
can it
say,
work?
prior to 1971, we actually had fiat backed by gold, and then of course after 1971, they broke the promise. Now we have a fiat-based monetary system. Do you think Bitcoin can actually work similarly to gold prior to 1971?
Yeah, so if you want to do it exactly in that particular strategy, then absolutely, because the US dollar was never backed by gold 100%. It was backed by gold 40%, right? So in that scenario, yes, I think that's absolutely possible. You can back the United States dollar 40% by Bitcoin and have, a CBDC or something else trade for people to use to do transactions. I think that works really well, but I don't think that's what most people mean when they say, can it be the reserve? Do I think that the entire world can move on Bitcoin and that will happen? No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I think Bitcoin is more as a like could be like a reserve asset because obviously it cannot be transacted like every minute, like 100 times a day, just like a US dollar can. But anyway, yeah, you mentioned like CBDC. What do you think about CBDC, and do you think they will materialize eventually?
Yeah, I don't think there's any getting out of it. I think that they will materialize because that's the best way for the inflationary system to stay alive. So yes, I do think that it materializes at some point. Do I like it? No, because I think it takes behavioral economics to the next level. I find that quite dangerous to think about what that will mean for a lot of people. Um, but do I think it's going to happen? Yeah, I do. I do think it's going to happen.
Do you think people will have a choice, choosing between CBDC and maybe like something else? I mean, let's say I don't want to use CBDC. Like, what do I have to use?
Well, listen, look, we already have a CBDC. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, most dollars are digital now. So,
Well,
I think everyone's using this boogeyman idea of how the CBDC would work. But I think the reality is we already have a CBDC.
what I'm trying to say is, let's say we have CBDC, there is no cash, and that they control your spending, they control your earnings. Let's say you have diabetes, you cannot buy any sugar because they literally press the eliminate button, and you can only buy certain items.
Wouldn't that be good though? That's actually a positive.
So you want them to control whatever you can
Most,
buy.
but listen, look, I'm never shying away from the idea, right? Like, and this is one of the things that I found when I was like coming up and trying to figure life out and stuff like this, that, and the other. I was all for like, okay, everyone should be equal and all this other stuff. And then you experience life, and then you meet people that are absolute idiots, right? And you go, right, democracy works on basically, 50% vote, right? So you basically got you have to live under the rule that the majority picks, and the majority is dumb. So it's like, I don't know. It's a very weird world to live in. I don't like to associate with most normal people nowadays. I don't like talking to them. You know why? Because they keep talking about stupid shit. Maybe they need a CBDC.
Yeah,
Maybe
look,
they need a CBDC that says, okay, you need to spend time reading the Bitcoin Standard because British HODL for 2 years has been saying you need to read the Bitcoin Standard and you haven't read the Bitcoin Standard. Maybe I'll program that into your money and then you might do it.
no, but my point is like if we have CBDC, it will be very totalitarian idea.
It
But
already
I,
is. Hey,
but
listen, it already is. Go outside. You live in America, the freest country on earth. Go out into the street and shout something about Israel or Palestine. right?
No, what I'm
What
trying.
is the point of everyone always tells me about freedom? All of these freedoms, right? What is the value of you having the freedom to say, I don't know, F you to the president when you can't actually control how your kids are raised? What is the value of that freedom? Everyone talks about that, right? It doesn't make sense to me. It's like everyone's like, oh, but I'm from London, right? So they say, oh, at least in America, I can say fuck you to this one person, right?
Yeah.
But your children are being raised in schools that are overrun by ideologies that don't make any sense for the world and is destroying your children's brains from the inside by trying to convince them that they need to chop their private parts off. What is the value of you being able to say F you to someone?
Because I think like most mainstream media being controlled by government and like upper class. Of course, they wanna like brainwash the children, and what they want them to learn whatever they want them to learn. They don't want to have like entrepreneurs, investor, good investors. They want to have a bunch of zombies, bunch of workers, and that's all. But
Freedom is an illusion. Freedom is an illusion, and you have to buy your freedom from the second you're born. Either your family is successful and bought it for you the day you were born, or you have to work and buy your freedom. Freedom is an absolute illusion.
so are
In
there like
anywhere in the world,
anywhere in the world?
anywhere in the world,
Yeah.
freedom is an illusion. The only way you gain your freedom is by creating enough value, making enough money, and then you can actually decide which way your world goes. But if you really think you have freedom and you're living in America, it's the freest country on earth, do what I said and see what happens.
Yeah, we do have like freedom of speech in America, but of course, like you were right about your previous point, we like brainwash a lot of kids with BS. But anyway, moving on, like, so if not America, where do you think like the best country to live if you like Bitcoiner?
I don't know if you're a Bitcoiner. I don't know. I've never visited El Salvador, but I think they're doing a good thing. You know, I think the president there is doing a remarkable job with El Salvador. I don't know, right? Listen, look, here's the reality of this. You want the reality of the situation? Once you make enough money, I learned this, and it was kind of a I always wanted to think, okay, maybe I need to move out of London when I was younger and this, that, and the other. There's better opportunities in other places and this, that, and the other. Once you make a certain amount of money, every city you go to is the exact same city. You're eating at the same type of quality of restaurants. You're going to the same type of cigar lounges. You're driving the same. You're being driven or driving the same type of cars. You're living in this pretty much the same type of apartments. It's basically a different language, right? Most of the time. That's it. But the world is exactly the same. So really, it's not about which country do you go to. It's about which country do you create for your last name. And that is based, the foundation of that is based on your wealth. And then you can utilize your wealth to create that foundation for you. But you can be the freest person on earth in America if you have enough money, right? I can be the
Yeah.
freest person on earth in London if I have enough money, right? But it's all about having enough money. That's why I've been piping on about get to one Bitcoin, because these happy hippie visions are not going to come true. You're just going to be left on the fields again.
So money is the problem.
Yes, of course. It's the 230-year subjugation of humanity. That's what I'm saying. Focus on the money, right? Focus on the money. It's not about anything else. So everyone's trying to distract themselves with this, that, and the other. Which country do I live in? Da, 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 da. Like, focus on the money. Because once you have that, then you have the choices. You've got to get the money first.
Yeah, I agree with you. All right, British HODL, we came to the end. So where can people find you online?
Just go to youtube.com and type in British HODL and look for this face. You'll find me.
All right, British HODL, it was nice talking to you.
No, listen, my pleasure, my friend, and best of luck for the halving and the rest of this year. If we don't do another one of these, thank you for having me back. And yeah, everyone subscribe to Aimstone right now, because otherwise, if you don't subscribe to Aimstone, right, you're one of these people that's on the field that doesn't want to do anything with their life, and only people that subscribe to Aimstone have freedom. So subscribe to Aimstone right
Thank you
now.
much. I appreciate it. Subscribe, of course, to British HODL. I will leave all the links in the description box below. Thank you so much. Hope you guys enjoyed this interview with British HODL. Please follow British HODL on YouTube as well as Twitter account. If you guys have any questions, please shoot me an email or message me on Twitter. Thank you so much for watching.